I'm Japanese. My father's Japanese also. My mother is white. When the Netherlands had other colonies in South America, like Curaçao, Aruba, Bonaire, Suriname. And when slavery got abolished in 1873, there was a huge economical impact that was made. So they had all these plantations, and the Dutch needed people to do the old work from the African slaves. So they first sent people from India, on the north part of India, because Great Britain, they already had a sort of a system from contract workers. So they sent people from India to Suriname to do the work on the plantations, but because the people from India are not Dutch subjects, they started to send people from Java in 1890. And that's how my great grandparents came from Java to Suriname. And they didn't knew that Suriname was that far away. They thought it's like another island, it's a paradise, and where you can get a lot of money and a good future for your children. So, and some people even got drugged or kidnapped to Suriname. And my great grandparents never had the opportunity to really say goodbye, because they thought maybe in 5 years we will be back to our home country. So the situation in Suriname, contract workers is like a contract, so you can't get out of the situation. So I don't use the term contract work, I use the term like forced labor. That's a better term for it. And well, they didn't get a lot of money, like I don't know how much, but it's not really enough to survive. And there was a lot of pain that they left everything behind, and they missed the families. And even they, I got a picture on coincidence. When the trip to Suriname, they took 3 daughters of them, and my grandmother was born in Suriname after that. And the Japanese people couldn't get back to Indonesia because they didn't have the money, or because of the situation between the Netherlands and Indonesia, there weren't any boats back to Indonesia. So we weren't able to go back to Indonesia. And so our great-grandparents, we have a lot of respect for them, because they threw their whole lives away for their children. So they to have access to the institutes, like going to school and the universities for a better life, they were Muslim, and they had to convert to Christianity. And you have these residential schools, like in the United States, from the American Indians, where they go to residential schools to erase their identities. You had these also in Suriname. So everything what defined you was savage and bad, and eating with your hands is filthy. Your language is savage. We can't speak Japanese at home. So that's also why me and my other family relatives don't speak Japanese anymore. And that's also why a lot of Japanese people aren't Muslim anymore. So the situation in these residential schools was really bad, and you also because these schools, it divided the Japanese community, because the people in these schools felt better than the traditional Japanese people, because they've learned that Japanese culture is bad. So a lot of divide in our community, and my father was adopted because my grandmother was in that school at that time. So that's why that's why I was born in the Netherlands. And these are different layers, because adoption erases your identity, but also colonialism erases identities as well. So that's also the reason why I'm here. Tomorrow I'm going with Yankee to my family in Prachimontorro. I'm really lucky, because a lot of people in Suriname don't know who their family are anymore. So I'm going to visit them tomorrow for the first time, and I'm really nervous. That's also why I have these pictures. So in the Netherlands, there's a lot of racism, and it gave me an identity crisis also. And when there's in Holland there's a tradition. Sinterklaas is like Santa Claus with giving children presents with a really racist stereotype in blackface, curly hair, earrings, red lips, and things. Yeah, Zwarte Piet. Yeah, and when that discussion came through, a lot of racism in the Netherlands became visible for me. And I thought, friends and family, and then I thought, what is this? So that was in 2013. So that I woke up in 2013, and then I became an activist first against Zwarte Piet, and then other racist traditions. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of racist traditions. This is the only. They always say the Dutch don't have a culture, but the culture of the Dutch is stealing other cultures. So we have a lot of work in our activism. So we started different grassroots against racist stereotypes, against Asian people, black people, Native American people, like that. In 2016, I became sort of famous in the Netherlands because on the 4th of May we have this Memorial Day, and I changed my profile picture on Facebook with a sign with no 4th of May for me. 4th of May is a Dutch Memorial Day when everyone is 2 minutes silent for the victims of the World War II.
Almost everyone.
Almost everyone. And I said, I'm not going to take part of the memorial because it's hypocrite. We remember the Jewish victims, but there's so a lot of Muslim hate in the Netherlands, like mosques get attacked, and they're burning mosque down. They're throwing fireworks, throwing rocks at windows and things, and that gave me a lot of aggression, a lot of death threats. People wanted to rape me. I immediately stopped going to school. I'm really I don't work also anymore, because when you Google us, you see all these things, the activities, all these things people write about us, and nobody wants that. And also, I can, for example, I can't work in a store because when I get recognized, I may be a target of physical aggression. And in 2016, I was recognized and attacked because I was a lot in the media back then.
This is the picture that she's talking about at the Memorial Day.
So I got recognized outside by a neo-Nazi. We have a lot of neo-Nazis in the Netherlands.
17 million.
And he hit me, and I got recognized a lot, but not like physical confrontations. A year later, I got recognized again by a neo-Nazi, and I was going to the store. I was going inside, and I saw this person that attacked me. So I was taken hostage in the store, and they walked around like for an hour to find me, to beat me down again. And then I called some people to get me out of the situation. So they arrived after an hour, and there was a physical interaction to get me out of the situation. And because of that, 2 months later, 10 new Nazis visited my home again, weaponed and to do things. And the police won't help us. I tried to press charges against the thousands, maybe 10,000s, I don't know, maybe 100,000 of death threats we received. They
Treat you?
They treat me different. Like I go to the police station and they say, "We cannot help you. Go home, bye." And Michael, they do the procedure, but then they say it's not important enough. We're not going to do anything. And our other board member, he's a white man, and he gets the red carpet treatment, and he can press charges. So he does all these legal procedures.
Even court cases where people got fined.
Yeah.
When we do something, she doesn't even get accepted, like she
No.
says. And for me, every time I receive a letter, no priority.
Yeah. So, but the violence from individuals is different than violence from institutes, because when you don't get protected by the institutes, there's nothing else anymore. So that's more traumatic than institutes. Also, because of our activities, we get arrested by no reason. I got really also mental problems because of that, because I was at sometimes I'm paranoid that I'm going to get arrested again for no reason. And we're also they put us also on terrorist lists. Not really a list, it's a document they published for the public. And when you think they published for the public, it's for the public, so it is to damage our reputation. So that made us activism a lot harder. They don't want to talk to us privately, but not in public. So the way we do our activism is like kicking doors open, taking the highest stage, receive the aggression, receive the violence, and then people like opinion makers, people who write for newspapers, academics, they can continue the debate in our society, and change are going to make that way.
I'm Michael van Zeijl. I'm 38, and I'm a child of a white Dutch woman, and I think you call it Indo. I really hate that phrase because it has this complete racist connotation, especially in the Netherlands, but I understand it makes stuff easier, so I don't mind if you use this phrase. Because this is a phrase also they use to erase our identities. My grandfather was a KNIL military. And the Europeans, they got drafted during the Agressie Belanda, and they got forced to fight with the Dutch. And of course, there's centuries of racist hierarchy, apartheid laws here. I don't have to tell you this, but so there's intergenerational trauma that also is very present in the Indo community in the Netherlands. It's a completely whitewashed. People really believe that they are white, and the most racist of proxy racist politicians in the Netherlands are Indo-Europeans. So this paints a picture about what kind of setting I come from. I am lucky that my grandfather and my grandmother, they got an arranged marriage. My grandmother is an indigenous woman from Tanah Toraja, from the region around Rantepau, and she was pretty woke. She always taught me about her, about our culture, and about what happened to her, why she did not live in the same house with my grandfather, because when they came to the Netherlands, they immediately moved separate. She still took care of him, but she and her children moved in a different house because there was no love. And I come from a family, and I think many Indo-Europeans, we have this saying, when I say to them that you should be more Dutch than Dutch people, all of them will say, oh yeah, I know what you mean. And they laugh about it, but this goes really deep into our beings, actually. Self-hatred is real. Also, the self-pity is real. My community really does not acknowledge what happened during Agressie Belanda. They don't give room for that, so there's also no healing. There's also no way they see that they are victims made perpetrators, so they are just victims, which really doesn't open up the debate for the real victims. And it's the people, the indigenous people of Indonesia. And I always got taught to think for myself, and I always did that. And I had a lot of questions, and my grandma always answered these questions. But my grandma died when I was really young, and then it stopped. And also the Bahasa Indonesia and Salam Toraja speaking in our family stopped. So 22 years after that, it was a search for who am I, and why don't I feel at home here in this country, and why don't my parents tell me who I am? Because there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of, like Christa already said, you're treated as, your indigenous culture is treated as inferior and barbaric and ridiculous, and only the good parts are taken out of it. Like every person will ask, oh, you know how to cook Indonesian food? That's sort of bullshit. So I got a lot of questions when I was young, and I still have the same questions when I grew older, and I felt really useless. I think I have a pretty capacity to use my brain, but there was no way I could use it in the Netherlands. So I felt pretty useless, and I started putting all my energy and working so much, really exploiting my own body just for work. And alcohol, drugs, you can name it, everything, until my body said stop. Then they discovered I had a chronic illness in my bowels, and I had to stop everything. And then there was this very, very deep hole which I fell in, which was actually the thing that saved me. Because now I had to use my brain, and I had to confront myself, confront my demons. And I always had this since I was little, I can remember many examples of me speaking out to injustice, like in kindergarten already. And so I started doing this stuff on social media. I was focused mostly on how the Israelis treat Palestinians. And I got in touch with some people on the internet, and I thought, hey, this is cool, these people think alike. And I got into this group, and I met Christa in this group. And Christa's brother, and another person, American Indian person. And we soon got, I think, kicked out of that group because they thought we were too radical. And this group was led by a white person, and who was telling me you should not go with that non-white person because that person is bad for anti-racism. It was a racist setting. I don't have to explain you, I think. So we quit, and actually we contacted each other, and we saw a lot of sexism, a lot of homophobia, a lot of ableism in the Dutch anti-racism community, and we said we have to do something about this. And we started addressing this. We wanted to be decolonial. We started to think decolonial, going back to indigenous standards, stop thinking in a white way, and that means also to fight these colonial oppressions. And that made us a bit of a pariahs. I don't think a bit, but people in Dutch activism didn't like us. They still don't like us. Because we introduced intersectionality in Dutch activism. And because we got spit out by everyone that should support us, actually, we grew stronger, and we had to be more creative to spread our message. In the Netherlands, you have groups that fight for more privileges for their own social construct, but they don't fight the system. And we started first at social media, shaming people that were racist with their pictures and stuff that they said and their real names, and that went viral. That was small things actually, but we soon found out like this is not going to work. We need to focus on institutes. That is where the aggression is, and that is where. And our first thing actually that went viral, that was Christa's actions, which I showed you the picture. I don't know if you can all see it. It's Christa holding a picture saying she doesn't want to commemorate anymore at the National Memorial, and that's bad. First time we went viral. First time the whole country spoke about us. Instead of the golden age, in the Netherlands they call the 17th century, they call the Gouden Eeuw, the golden age. So they celebrate colonialism, slavery, and all the nasty stuff that comes with it. That's glorified. So there are a lot of streets named after colonial mass murderers in the Netherlands. I think every city has this. Has this neighborhood named with streets named after J.P. Koen, Daandels. You name them. You know all of them also. We announced on the 17th of August, I think it was 2016, we sent an open letter to the city of Utrecht to ask them to stop with their colonial glorification. And we didn't say what, just stop it, or actions will follow. And they didn't respond, so we took a bunch of people and we spray painted the whole neighborhood with that logo. And so everybody in that neighborhood was saying, hey, what is this? You saw on Twitter, like, what is this? What is this? All pictures showing up, and our open letter. Still, the Dutch state didn't respond, so we looked for the most painful thing, and that's in Hoorn. There is a statue of J.P. Koen and a statue of Bontekoe, and they have it there to celebrate how great VOC and colonialism is. We filed legal requests to cities. Hey, can you stop your racism? Can you please change this or this? And when they say no, we start a legal procedure. That's actually the only thing we do. And still they say you destroy our heritage and you want to change history. And we never said that they should change street names. The only thing we ask is put a sign under all this colonial crap with a real explanation underneath it. Because if you're going to take it away, these children won't learn what it was, and you're going to erase a whole bunch of racism that's happening right now. People can see how racist they really are. Confront them with this racism, and then in 20 years, people are fed up with these street names. At least when they have a bit of moral, sense of morality, sorry. And the city of Utrecht actually agreed with us. And I lived in the city of Utrecht and we started it there. And they started with a tour. They started with us. I invited Jeffrey Pondag. He is now a member of our foundation. And he is the chairman of Sedangkan Michael. That is a foundation that is suing the Dutch court for the Indonesian people that whose families got murdered by the Dutch during the Aktivisme Belanda, and they are winning every court case. And I invited all these radical decolonial people to form a coalition with the city of Utrecht to think of a plan of how we could present this. And I think a couple of months later, all of a sudden there was a news article in AD. AD is Algemeen Dagblad, it's a newspaper, pretty racist. And who is behind the Gouden Eeuw? And all of a sudden we were controversial. And several days later there was a whole documentary about us and framing us for threatening a highest person in the Ministry of Agriculture and Transport, I think. not agriculture, infrastructure, sorry. Because we wrote a letter, hey, you should stop your colonial glorification with a tunnel named after J.P. Koen. If you do not, we will take direct action. And since you are the only person that is responsible for this decision, they will also be pointed at you. Which they saw as a threat. While taking action of, you can protest, you can, I don't know, you can start a petition, you know, they immediately framed it as violent. And so they took this quote and they just chopped off the last part, like, because you are the only person that, we will also direct it to you as a decision maker. That was what's standing there. And that they used to frame us as terrorists that threaten politicians with their lives. And from that day on, actually our lives changed. We were no longer safe. Police entered members of our activist group house. Families also, with hands on their guns, really saying, hey, you should stop your social media activity and all your activities or else. And we first got a bit panicked because we didn't expect this. Of course, we knew when you're gonna fight institutes, they'll show aggression, but you don't never know that it's gonna happen until it's there.
Do you have any visible impact of your campaign? I mean, can you point to 1, 2, 3 things and say, oh, this is the impact of our campaign in Dutch public life? Or
for instance, last year around this time, 5th of December, there is Sinterklaas. We already mentioned it, Zwarte Piet. We actually stepped in this this whole thing. First we said, okay, we step out of it because it's becoming a hype, and it's symptom. It's fighting against symptoms, and it's not fighting against the exactly. But last year, because this fight is going on like this, and the aggression is getting more and more and more and more, we thought we really had a solution for this, and we took it to court, and we took all the organizing parties to court. That was 3 ministries, mayor, TV broadcasting, and 2 companies that were supposed to check on these broadcasting companies. It was public broadcasting companies, and we took in this court case, we took all the international treaties the Dutch signed, all the verdicts from human rights organizations that Zwarte Piet is a violation of children's rights, that it is racist. We took it to court, but we also showed in court that there is no way that we can fight this in court because the Dutch legal system doesn't even have a legal definition for racism. And actually, we brought this to the world, and because of that, we sent all the parties. We lost this court case, by the way, and we knew we would lose it because there is no way to fight this. Because all of these parties, they had a way to say, "Oh, but I'm not responsible." So in the end, nobody was responsible. But what we did is we showed them where the international treaties they were violating, and we invited them again to come and speak to us. And 4 ministries said, "Okay, we want to speak with you." Actually, they are framing us as terrorists, but at the same time, they are talking with us. We talked about a lot of stuff. Also, the 28th, we have a second report. We cannot be there. Other members of our foundation will go. And then we will address more stuff. But the result is that this year's National Sinterklaas Parade does not have Zwarte Piet anymore. and all the cities are saying we are stopping with Zwarte Piet. This is one of the results. This is the
Also
most recent.
street names.
Yeah, a lot of cities changed their street names or put some stuff. Added some information with it. There's a lot of debates going on about what we do with colonial glorification. A lot of companies that we called out changed their logos, changed their names. So there is definitely movement. A museum that stopped using an important museum that is stopped using
Golden Century.
Gouden Eeuw, the Golden Age, when they described the 17th century. And actually, next year we will be in the Rijksmuseum.
Oh yeah.
With that T-shirt.
Yeah.
There will be, but that's not an accomplishment. And also, it is important to have something physical you can show. But I think we all must also really understand that it's just a small fraction of what there are so many that we cannot call it a success or a result, or this is just a small battle we won in a huge war.
You can't fight something, or you can't erase something what is built up in 500 of years. So.
Also, this amusement park announced this year they're going to change their racist stereotypes. It's another one.
Oh, yeah.
So there are a lot of these examples, and now I realize that this is also a really male thing to do, because we should also accept our victories and take time to think about it and celebrate them, because we are also not robots.
Yes, the dehumanizing is also very internalized in us, because we get dehumanized so much from everywhere, like racist people, sexist people, but also in our activist community. So we have a mindset, and that says that we have to fight, and survive. But we're not really taking time to heal from our traumas, because activism is traumatic, and we don't really celebrate, because we don't do it for reputation or feeling better about ourselves. But that's something we're doing this for 6 years now. This is really something that that we realized that just standing still and just look at things and just giving ourselves validation is also very important, because hoe zeg dat volhouden?
We will not maintain this.
Yes, it's very hard to maintain this, because there's a lot of aggression.